Coming back to your main, I'm going to go to the unit counting station. I'm seeing that you only have 12 Marines and a Marauder, and 8 of those Marines are in his base. So you have a little bit of work cut out for you just keeping this main alive. Looks like this one bunker is going to be the hero of the game. But when you get the chance to get into his base with all these Marines, what are your prime targets? Because most of the time it's going to be workers, and after that I would say evolution chambers are the most important thing. But when you're this far behind, does that change in your mind?
It really depends. You basically are just taking what he gives you. And like right here, you can see all the drones are running away. Ideally, I'd like to kill all the drones. That would be the best way to come back, is to level it economically. But if I were to try and chase the drones down, I'm not going to do damage, and I'm going to lose the Marines, because you can see units are spawning here. And so basically this whole game is an example of you take what your opponent gives you, because they can't protect everything.
Yeah. And it looks like you're going to be able to take out the spawning pool and this evolution chamber. So that's going to be a pretty decent win, I would say. So let's go ahead and resume in 3, 2, 1, resuming. So one thing that I'm very curious about is, since infestors are out, there's a big threat of one fungal growth popping down and eliminating everything. So do you ever poach out with one Marine, or are you just very careful with that one Medivac? Or does that influence your decision for dropping?
I didn't think he had... Part of the reason I did the drop at that timing was because I saw that big army right outside my main. And so I figured, like, why would he leave an infestor in his base?
Yeah.
And so at this point in the game, not really factoring into my decision making.
And it looks like you just got Stim, which I'm not going to lie. You may know that it's probably my favorite upgrade in the game. Best thing in the universe.
One thing definitely to note here is Stim is way too late.
But it looks like you're doing a lot of damage. And I mean, this is one thing that I'm just delighted to see, is just an abuse of terrain. Because again, there's been some complaints about terrain in Starcraft 2, but it looks like you're just bouncing back and forth between this gold and this natural expansion. It's doing quite a bit of damage. And oh, I love this! You're target firing the infestor, so whenever these do end up unfungal growthing, you can pop out. So pretty awesome. And it looks like you're now getting the chance to finally retake your expo. So it looks like you're finally getting a little breath of fresh air. You're still behind by about 40 food. So are you still having that same plan you had not long ago, which is, I'm going to not attack, I'm just going to get my expansion up, I'm going to keep upgrading. What are your thoughts? Because I noticed that you are upgrade blocked without the armory.
Yeah, the plan here... At that point, the plan was get him out of my base so I can get my natural mining again. Because if the natural's not mining, I'm definitely going to lose.
Yes.
1 base versus 3 base, I don't care what's going on. Like, that's not a winnable situation. And now, I've got my Medivacs, which make my bio army a lot more efficient. I've got my 1-1 upgrades. I've noticed he's got 0-0 upgrades, and I've got my Medivacs. So I can start being a lot more, not like attacking aggressive, but I can start poking at him.
Yeah,
and that's what you're going to see me do.
Yeah, and it looks like you are doing this nice drop in the back, and you're running up your target firing the infestors, and thank God they are armored. That is just the best thing in the universe. And it looks like you're doing a little bit of movement up here, and it looks like you might be able to even kill off this expansion. But how soon... I'm actually going to pause this right here, because this, I think, is a great example of when aggression can come back and bite you in the ass. A lot of players, when I see during a situation like this, they will just try their hardest to do as much damage with this force as they can. And they will never consider falling back and regrouping, with the rest of the forces that you've produced. They'll never consider that at any point in time. They'll just attack, attack, attack until they're all out of steam. So do you have... I know you say that you play a lot by feel, but... do you want to abuse that Zelnaga watchtower that your units are right next to try to get spotting on when to retreat? I mean, what are your thoughts on pulling back in this situation at this gold?
So the main reason there was that drop in the back of his base, that wasn't really... Like, yeah, it ended up killing a bunch of infestors, but that wasn't the point. The point was to split his army so that I could do this attack on the gold minerals.
Yeah.
And so I know...
Oh, I just want to briefly say, and I mean, I'm showing to the observers right now the huge distance between the back of the main where you're dropping and all the way over here to the gold natural. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So the whole point of that drop is to pull his army. If he splits his army, I should be able to win that battle because
Uh-huh.
Marine Marauder Medivac, especially when I have an advantage in upgrades, is incredibly efficient in small numbers. That's
Uh-huh.
just the nature of healing units.
Yeah.
And then, so if he splits his army, I should come out ahead on that,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
because of the way my army composition is. If he takes his whole army and moves it to one spot, then I get
Yeah.
free reign in the other spot. If he had gone to defend the gold, then I can snipe out maybe both Evo chambers or the Baneling nest, like something important in the back of his base.
Yeah.
And so here, basically what I'm doing is attack as long as I can before his army gets there, because I know I can't fight all of his roaches and infestors together.
Uh-huh. And one little bit about the terrain setup right here. So this is a little bit unique to this specific location. I mean, I'm seeing all your Marauders and your Medivacs here, and they moved up this wide ramp, but there's also this Xel'Naga watchtower that has this retreat angle that you can abuse. So I'm wondering, let's pretend for a moment that this Xel'Naga watchtower exit didn't exist, that this one ramp was the only possible entrance to this hatchery. How does that influence your decision? This is a very retreatable position that you're in right now, but what are your thoughts on if it was an expansion that was a little bit more tucked away?
I mean, this is the beauty of Starcraft 2. If I can't retreat by foot, I load those bio units into the Medivacs and I fly away.
Oh my god, fantastic. Ain't that a beauty? And again, let's pretend for a moment that this was, you doing something with a different composition. If this were even like Protoss versus Zerg, and you're running up here with a small Protoss force to harass this. I mean, do these retreat angles allow or influence your decisions?
I mean, it definitely makes it more harassable, particularly if you have enough units that you can afford to put one on the watchtower.
Mm-hmm.
That gives you plenty of time to run away. The only problem at this point is because I haven't cleared out my rocks, he can cover my retreat angle fairly easily. Like, by the time the units get in range of the watchtower, they're also in range to cover both of the ramps.
Yeah. Well, either way, like you said, thank God those are Medivacs, and you can just run up and get out of there. Easiest thing in the world. And it looks like his infestors are quite far away, so not too big of a concern about fungal growth. But I'm going to go ahead and be resuming in 3, 2, 1, playing it. So it looks like you are target firing the Queen, which I assume is your number one choice of thing to kill here.
Definitely. In terms of power to health ratio, the Queen goes down the fastest and is the biggest impact on the Zerg's play and economy.
But do you think that perhaps killing drones over the Queen would be a little bit more useful, or do you think that they can bounce back with the Queen too easily?
That's a more situational thing. In that example, the Queen came out to fight, and the drones were in the back.
Yeah.
This is another example, like, you take what your opponent gives you. If the Queen hadn't come out to fight, I wouldn't have chased it down because I knew I was running out of time.
And I see you here, looks like you got one good fungal growth off on that Medivac, but you can easily back up. He has no Hydralisks, he has no Mutalisks. And, it's kind of funny, we've been seeing all this action up in the main, over at the Gold Expo, and at the Natural. And meanwhile, we haven't actually gotten a chance to look back in your base, and it looks like you are slamming out a ton of barracks in your base. Do you have an armory here? It doesn't look like you've yet started one. You haven't even taken the gas at your the geysers at your expo yet. Looks like you're just focusing on a giant mineral army to again barrel them to death with just big numbers of Marine Marauder.
So my plan earlier, play for the mid game. There comes a point where once I've got those 1-1 upgrades, the cost of going to 2-2 is going to slow down my attack too much.
Yeah.
And so I go for, I think it was 2 or 3 drops and several different attacks poking at his resources, trying to keep him down. And then eventually, I think I eventually go to 2-2, but the main thing here is to aim for that timing attack of the 1-1, the Medivacs, the Marine Marauder. I can't afford to keep waiting to do something on the map.
And I see you getting caught a little off guard up at this top left location, but you managed to pull up to the high ground, doing quite a bit of damage, some nice micro against these roaches. And you lost a lot of Medivacs in that attack, and that's kind of tough to be able to come back from that big of a detriment, because I mean right now Zerg knows no harass is coming at all either. So are you feeling a little up against the wall right now?
Did you miss the drop that I put in the back of his base?
I completely missed the drop that you put in the back of his base. So I'm actually going to pause it, and I'm going to hit the magic B button 3 times. So B, B, B. Alright, so I've hit my magic B button 3 times. Yeah, so now I actually am looking at the drop that's going on in the back of the main. So I'm going to be resuming in 3, 2, 1, starting. And seeing these Marauders shoot, and it looks like the target firing the Queen. The Queen has just fallen on my end. And a bunch of Zerglings are popping out right now, and god, they just do not do a lot of damage at all to Marauders. And it looks like you are just loading right back up here in a minute.
Probably should be.
How effective did you feel like this drop was? Because this to me looked